Brian Smith, Sony Artisan of Imagery. Today we're talking about camera and lens selection, what works best for portraits on location. My go-to gear these days, I'm shooting with the A7R Mark II. I love that camera. It's got high resolution, it's got image stabilization, it's got a back illuminated sensor. Typically though, I'm shooting at ISO 100, the base ISO, but I also know if I'm shooting in low light and have to crank that to 12,000 or 25,000, the back illuminated technology allows me to capture fine detail without getting much noise. So it's really the camera that does it all. The three lenses that I kept hearing from pros that they wanted for the A7 series were a 24-70 2.8, a 70-200 2.8, and an 85 1.4. I wanted to see them match the performance of Sony's A-mount Zeiss lenses that I really love. And so far shooting with the 24-70 2.8 and 85 1.4 G Master, I was very pleasantly surprised that they didn't merely match the performance of the benchmark that Sony set with A-mount, but they actually exceeded the performance of Zeiss lenses. My absolute favorite lens to shoot portraits is a 24-70. If I had to shoot with one lens, that's the lens I use. Because that 24-70 gives me the ability to shoot everything from at 24 millimeters, I'm not doing a tight portrait, I'm shooting typically a full body shot with a lot of environment around the subject. And then if I zoom in at 45, 50 millimeters, it's just perfect for half body. Or if I'm gonna do a tight portrait, a lot of times I love shooting at 70 millimeters. It's a little bit shorter than the traditional 85, 100, 135, but that means that you're closer and get a more intimate shot of the subject. So instead of standing way back and shouting directions, we're just having a quiet conversation, and I can tell them just turn a little bit more to the left, and it just gives the reader a feel that they're right in at an intimate moment with the subject instead of being distant from them. So 24-70 really gives me everything from that wide angle to very tight. If you let me have a second, the next lens that I would add in is the FE 85 1.4 G Master, because it gives you really that classic headshot portrait look where you can shoot a tight portrait with a little bit more flattening to the scene. So it doesn't have quite the same intimate feel that you would have at 70 millimeters, but those times you really want to flatten off the perspective a bit for a tight portrait. 85 is perfect, and having a lens that is razor sharp, wide open, with no chromatic aberration, it's the best 85 that I've ever shot. And honestly, those two lenses for a portrait photographer, that takes care of 95% of what I shoot. Be very happy shooting with an A7R II and those two lenses. Typically, I will take other gear just in case it's something out of that range. The other lens that I'll almost always have in a kit with me is the 90 millimeter f2.8 macro. It's a G lens, but I honestly think it should have been the original G Master because it's that sharp. DxO rated it the sharpest 90 to 100 millimeter macro ever made, and I totally believe that. It's incredibly sharp, and what that has an advantage is macro doesn't typically just mean when you're shooting bugs or things one-to-one. It means that it's optimized for the close range as opposed to infinity. And a lot of times if I'm doing a headshot, the close range, it might be 1 to 5 or 1 to 6 is absolutely exceptional. And it's a lens that when you're shooting tighter and tighter, you never hit the minimum focus when you're doing a portrait. So suddenly we can be going from right here to in this tight, and I know that it will hold focus even as I'm getting closer and closer. So that's a lens that I love as well. Probably the number one thing that I recommend people as soon as they buy a camera is get an external battery charger, or better yet, two, and 2 to 3 to 4 extra batteries. And the batteries are really small. Throw them in your pocket and stop complaining about battery life. So on location portraits, one of the things that a lot of people don't think about is the fact that the EVF and being able to review images through the electronic viewfinder is actually a godsend when shooting in bright sunny conditions, whether you're here in Miami with like strong overhead light or at the beach or something like that. It's always a very difficult thing. You're looking at the LCD on the back and you can barely see the image and you just hope it's there. Being able to look through an electronic viewfinder and review the images that way, or even something as simple as seeing the camera settings very clearly that way, makes life that much easier. I also shoot a lot of black and white, and even though I shoot RAW when I do black and white and do my conversions later, I can set the camera for RAW plus JPEG and select a camera profile that shows me in real time black and white. So if I'm shooting a scene and want to kind of preview how the image is going to look in black and white, whatever contrast range I want, whatever sharpness I want, sort of pre-visualize in real time what those black and white images are going to do. As I was making the transition, even from Sony's A-mount cameras like the Alpha 900 to the original mirrorless, the NEX5, sometimes I would pick up one of my A900s, stare at the LCD, and then I'd realize, oh, there's no live view. Also, sometimes if I'm doing a portrait shoot and we lock the camera down on a tripod, I can interact with the subject and still see in real time the image without having to put my eye against the camera. I think one of the best things about mirrorless cameras in general, but the Sony A7 series in particular, is the ability to mount almost any lens ever made. I love Sony lenses for the sharpness, but there's times where you may not necessarily want something razor sharp, and if you're looking for a 50-year-old single-coated lens or an even older lens with no coatings on it to give you a soft image straight in camera rather than in Photoshop, the ability to put all of this different glass on your camera and create different looks in camera is a huge plus. And Sony gives me all those things that I'm looking for in a camera. It's got high resolution, they offer things like image stabilization. So I shoot handheld a lot, and being able to make sure that there's no camera movement in the images and having it built into the chip. So even if I'm shooting with a 50-year-old Leica lens, I'm getting image stabilization that I would not have gotten on the camera that lens was made for. To me, the thing that I love about mirrorless is all the technology that it affords you. You can see in real time what the scene looks like, be able to review in the EVF if you wish, so you're not chimping back and forth between looking through the viewfinder and then down at an LCD. So you're shooting very quickly. It offers things like focus peaking. Because of how thin the bodies are, they're what I consider almost a universal lens mount, because by using lens adapters, you can pretty much mount any full frame lens that's ever been made, even lenses that are 100 years old. Somebody probably has made a lens adapter that allows you to repurpose those glass and shoot something totally different in camera. So thanks for joining me on this location portrait shoot. Hopefully everything we went over today now makes sense. It all begins with picking the right camera and lenses. So find a subject, pick a great background, and get out there and take some great location portraits.